Okay, so let's just start with chapter 5, the leadership lesson for dyadic relations, attributions, and followership. Okay. These are the learning objectives. So we want to understand why different dyadic relations develop between a leader and individual subordinates. And understand the major findings in research on leader-member exchange theory and limitations of this research. Understand how leader behavior influenced by attributions about motives and skills of subordinates. And finally, understand appropriate ways to manage a subordinate who has performance deficiencies. Okay. Okay, is it any better? Can you hear me? Can you hear me loud and clear, please? Okay, very good. So we also want to understand how leaders and followers attempt to manage impressions about their ability and motivation, understanding how attributions and implicit theories influence follower perception and evaluation of a leader, and finally, understand that followers can do what followers can do to have more effective dyadic relations with their leader, and how follower self-management can substitute for some aspects of leadership. Okay. So the leader-member exchange theory, which we call it LMX theory, is actually based on certain type of behaviors, and it has certain role-making stages, and we want to absolutely measure LMX, and we want to see how the leader-member exchange theory is actually working when it's used. So the table here at the bottom is basically showing us a sample of items from leader-member exchange theory. So, like, sample questions for LMX are: how well does your leader understand your job problems and needs? So then basically what happens is you can choose any of the answers. It could be not a bit, a little, a fair amount, quite a bit, and a great deal. So, and how well does your leader recognize your potential? So not at all, a little, moderately, mostly, and fully. How would you characterize your working relations with your leader? Then you can say extremely, worse, extremely ineffective, worse than average, average, better than average, and extremely effective. And what are the changes that your leader would use his power to help you solve the problems in your work? So none, small, moderate, high, and very high. These are some sample questions that we use in leader-member exchange theory. So these questions, when it's given to the team members and the staff, when they answer it, when you get it back, then you can analyze it and see how well our leader-member exchange is actually working for us. So the research has been done on correlation of leader-member exchange theory to exactly find out how the relations between the leader and the members actually work out for the team. And then we actually want to evaluate the LMX theory and research. So by that, we want to address the ambiguity about the nature of the exchange relationship. So there is always an ambiguity in this type of relationship. More elaboration about how exchange relations evolve over time. So as you know, these type of relationships evolve over time and change and adjust according to the needs and requirements of the team. Then we have clear description of how a leader's dyadic relationships affect each other and group performance. So we need to get an understanding and also a clear description of how a leader's dyadic relations basically okay, so Safi, let me just okay. So we need to get a clear understanding of the dyadic relationships of the leader and the team members, how they affect each other, how the performance is influenced by that. Then incorporation of attributional processes. There are certain processes we attribute to certain team members. We need to incorporate all that and use that incorporation of substitutional variables and more longitudinal research. So more of a longitudinal research should be done so that we can get better understanding of how it works and better results. Okay. Okay. So the leader attribution about subordinates. There is actually two-stage attribution model where the manager tries to determine the cause of the poor performance. So when you see a poor performance, let's suppose you're a manager and you see certain team members have poor performance. So as a manager, you need to understand the cause of that type of behavior and why that team member is not performing as required. Then the manager tries to select an appropriate response to correct the problem. So when you see a problem, when there is a problem, you need to fix the problem. So basically, the leader or the manager tries to select the appropriate response to that problem so that it will fix the problem and also do not spread in the company. Okay. Then types of attributions, we have internal. For internal, we cover the effort or the ability so that the team members will do, and the external type of attributions. So I'll I'll pause here. If there's any questions, is there any questions so far? I see that Ms. Mina is mentioning is the issues of PowerPoint. So, okay, the PowerPoint, I've been giving it to the admin after each class, and they have the slides. So, I believe that they should be able to give it to you. Okay, so if they can't, so they have checked with the company that we get these slides from, and they, unfortunately, they are not able to share them if that is on a Facebook page that they have mentioned. Yes, as I mentioned, you have to follow the copyright rules, and because of the copyright, we are not able to share them. That's why they are not doing it. What you can do, you can always refer to the recorded session and just review the class as many times as you want. You have it on your Facebook, you have it on your MyLMS, so it's pretty much the same as having the slides, because you just go and listen and watch the clips, and it's basically pretty much the same. But if they said they can't share it, so unfortunately we won't be able to. Yes, that is true, Mr. Zagoon. Yeah, we have other options, so we just use whatever resources that we have. Okay. So now we want to understand why there is a reason for an external attribution, why it happens that sometimes we use external attributions. So there might be times that the subordinate has no prior history of poor performance on similar tasks. So sometimes we give similar tasks to the team members, and they have never had any poor performance history. Or the subordinates performs other tasks effectively. Sometimes the subordinates can do effectively and work effectively all the projects, and so generally they are very good regarding the performance. Or subordinate is doing as well as other people who are in a similar situations. Or just comparably, the subordinate is doing all right. So the situation and the context, if you consider all that, you'll see that like comparatively, the subordinate is doing a good job, or like a normal job. The effects of failures or mistakes are not serious or harmful. So sometimes mistakes are part of the learning process. So sometimes those mistakes made by the subordinate are not that important or problematic to concern us. It's just it's part of the learning curve for the subordinate. Then the manager is dependent on the subordinate for his or her own success. So sometimes the manager is very much dependent on the subordinates, so that the employees are playing a very important role for the manager and the leader. Sometimes the subordinate is perceived to have other redeeming qualities. So there are other qualities that the subordinates have that would basically overshadow those problems or those poor performances that that the team member has. And then there are times that the subordinate has offered excuses or an apology. Sometimes the subordinate just agrees that his or her performance has not been great and gives you an apology or a reason why it has happened. So that really helps. And the managers with poor experience doing the same kind of work as the subordinate with prior experience. Sometimes you would just compare and see like previous managers, I mean like managers before becoming manager, they would make the same mistakes, and it's very common. So like as a leader, you will understand that it's part of a learning process. So when a subordinate makes mistakes, when you compare, you know that other people that are now, let's say, managers or even yourself, when at the position you are facing the same problem. So it's definitely understandable, and the manager can or the leader can just hang in there and give some time to subordinate and make sure that the performance and all that are correctly measured, just not just by once. Okay. So then the leader attributions about subordinates continued. Then the research on the model, as we mentioned, this model is a very new model. So those questions that we give to the subordinates or the team members, we would do research and make sure that it has the right impact on the employees, and we get benefit from that when we analyze the answers and come up with some useful analysis. Then type of exchange relationships influences managers' attribution. So when there are different type of exchange relationships, then the manager's role would be different. So sometimes it's less critical when there is a high exchange relationship. So the manager's role is by itself is not the only way, and actually there is a very high and intense level of relationship between the leader and the subordinates. Then sometimes you have effective performance, which is more likely to be attributed to the internal factors where there is a high exchange relationship. Sometimes the performance problems or whatever is happening is due to internal factors, not external. So then we would know why it's the case, and it's easier to understand and probably analyze, because we know that the internals, we just check them and measure them again, and if there's anything needed to be changed, you can absolutely do that because it's just the internal factors. Then sometimes ineffective performance is more likely to be attributed to external factors when there's a high exchange relationship. So as you can as you can see, sometimes those ineffective performances happen because of the external factors. So it's really important to understand which one is causing the problem. Is it an internal or external factors? If it's external, our power over them will be less probably. We need to find out exactly how we can fix them. But if it's internal, it's much easier. We can always gauge it and measure it, and also take actions and move to the next level. Then the opposite is true for low exchange relationships. Sometimes there's a low exchange relationship, and that's when we'll see that this amount of information exchange between the leader and the subordinate is not as much as other cases. Okay. So how can we correct and rectify the performance deficiencies or problems? When we find out the problem, when the leader or the manager realizes there's a problem or a deficiency in the performance of the subordinate, they have to fix it. So how can we go about it? So the first thing is to gather information about performance problems. As we all know, information plays a very important role. So even when there is a problem, having information on that performance deficiency would help us to resolve it and understand why and the causes and what makes it the way it is and all that. So getting more information is actually the key to such a situation. Then we try to avoid attributional biases. We don't want to be biased or subjective towards something when we are factoring when we are considering the factors like either external or internal. We don't want to generalize or just attribute something to some certain subjective measurements. We always want to be objective and make sure what we measure is actually a reflection of scientific measurement on those subjects. Then we want to always provide corrective feedbacks. So and it's going to be promptly. So as soon as we see there is a chance of improvement for a subordinate or a team member, we just tell them. We just try to give them feedback all the time. And basically, feedback is the best way to talk to your customers or whoever you're dealing with, because that's how you will understand how the customers will think about you. So in the sense of relationship between the leader and subordinate, also giving feedback is great because you tell your subordinate how you think of the problem or the issue, and they'll also give you their action plan. Then it's also good to describe the deficiency in briefly in a specific term. So you want certain terms and specific situations to be explained elaborately and be explained to the subordinate so they understand. Because sometimes you might just not be happy with the performance of the subordinate, but if you don't explain it thoroughly, like what you expect, how you expect it, like all the details, you're not equipping the subordinate with the tools they need to do that. So you need to give them the tools, and those tools come only by first explanation and then sharing them. Then explain the adverse impact of ineffective behavior. So of course, ineffective behavior and wrong or not professional behavior of the subordinates will always cause us some problems and impact to the company. So we want to explain that to the team member so they understand when they do it wrongly, what happens when they do certain things, and then finally stay calm and professional. So we want to stay calm and professional all through the year. I don't want to lose anybody. So that's the communication that you would have with your employees. You want to make them sure that you're professional and calm, and when you give them feedback, it's not just you're beating them down or undermining them or all that. You're very professionally just giving them feedback and explain the problems, and your main goal is to understand the situation. Okay. Then we want to correct the performance deficiency, like with mutually identify the reasons for inadequate performance. So it could be on both ways. It could be on the leader side or the subordinate part. So you want to make sure that you understand the reasons that is causing the situation. Either if it's from you or from the subordinate, you want to make sure you identify those reasons, because if you don't understand them, you won't be able to come up with an action plan. And what about developing and improving plan for the staff? Yes, that's actually a very great idea. That is part of all these that we are discussing. Coming up with a plan and be able to communicate it with the team members is really a key. Ask the person to suggest remedies. Sometimes you ask the team member what they think. Their answers are sometimes the best solutions to the problem, because you're involving your subordinates in a process, and when they choose to be answered certain questions, that is very important, because in our business we normally don't get involved in that deeper levels. It's just we need to make sure we know what exactly needs to be corrected. So then again, so it goes back to the identifying the reasons and also the remedies. Sometimes the staff have great ideas. If it's correctly implemented and used, it helps the company. So just asking for their suggestions really helps, because it opens our eyes and shows us a different perspective, because sometimes we're just talking to them as a manager or a leader, but as a team member, as a subordinate, they have their own views, which could be really helpful. Then we need to also give them confidence. When you are giving them feedback, when you're not happy with their performance, you got to make sure you're not hurting their self-confidence. You need to give them some confidence and build them up. Your feedback should help them become better, not just to disable them from any changes, because if we are so harsh on them, then as a result, you'll see like non-performing subordinates. Then expressing a sincere desire to help the person. It's really important that if the subordinate realizes that the main goal is to help them, it's not just to criticize them, it's not just to question what they do, but to help them sincerely. So if they understand and believe that, that really helps us. Then we want to reach agreement on a specific action step. Sometimes there are steps that are needed to be taken, and as of now, probably the subordinate is doing it in a certain way, but when we are giving them feedback, we want them to do it differently. So it's good to come to an agreement on every single or on each specific step, because you might have an idea and you wanted the step to be done this way, but the team member has their own viewpoint and they might want to do it in a different way. As soon as you're able to reach an agreement on the steps and follow those steps and get them done, you're fine. And then summarize the discussion and verify the agreement. So finally, we summarize the discussion. We say we discussed about these, we gave you these feedback, you mentioned you're going to change the current performance into this way, and then just wrap it up. Okay. So what about the, okay, that is already answered. Okay. Then follow attribution and implicit theories. So sometimes the subordinate is just a follower of your leadership, and the fact that we discussed, there are times that we have followers. You have certain things that people will follow. You have certain role models that you do, and then other people will just look at you and you just try to follow what you do. So some of the determinants of those attributions is timely indicators of performance. We need certain timely indicators to tell us about the performance. So we can't just measure our performance if we don't have any timely indicators to help us to realize exactly what's going on. The improvements, the shortcomings, how we deal with them, it should be in a timely manner. Sometimes we need to get direct actions. Just indirect actions and indirectly addressing those issues is not going to help us. We want to make sure that we have a direct involvement and direct actions to be taken, and it takes certain seriously about the problem. So we need to be serious to take immediate and direct action in order to solve the issue. Then we need to give responses in the crisis time. When there is a problem, we need to be responsive and give response as soon as possible. Then we need to understand the constraints on leaders' decisions and actions. Sometimes there are certain limitations on the leader side, how their decisions are going to work, and their limitations regarding what they can do, what they can decide, and what they cannot do. So it's really good to clear about those so that there's a mutual understanding. And then the leader's intentions and competency. So you want to clarify the leader's intentions. Okay, if the leader comes up with a feedback and the feedback just stays at a feedback level and the intentions of those are not clarified, sometimes it's really hard for the follower, for the subordinate to follow those because they don't really understand what are the intentions of that. Probably it's to build up the team member, it's probably to enhance the performance and probably get the results that the team is looking for. And you need to be able to link those into their performance. And then leaders' intentions and competency, as I mentioned, and leaders' personal qualities. So personal qualities of the leader. So what are the exact strong points of the leader that the leader can use in order to get the job done. So it always pays to focus on your qualities, your personal qualities, those attributes that you have as a person that everybody admires you. Just using them in different contexts may not be as efficient as understanding them and have a clear picture of your qualities. What are those strong points that you have as a leader? Making sure that you know them, that actually helps you a lot regarding the time that you're giving feedback or you're analyzing an employee's performance and giving out responses to those. Okay. Then we have implications of follower attributions about leaders and implicit leadership theories. So certain behaviors or actions that the employees take, it actually shows how followers think of the leaders. So we need to be wary of all those implications and those minor details that tell us something about what's going on And finally, implicit leadership theories, which is those theories that are not explained but just presumed. So, or they are latent in the scenario. Okay. Are there any questions so far? Let's pause here and make sure everybody's on the same page. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask us. Any comments, any questions? Okay, that's great. Okay. So the impression that the staff, the employee, the follower, or the team member get, we as the leaders or managers, we want to manage that too. We want to manage how they think of us, because it's really important when you are a manager or a boss. The first or the most important or the final step that you use is how you manage their perception and what they understand from the scenario. So sometimes we need to give examples, exemplification, in the sense that, to be exact, give them examples, detailed examples about how it works, how you realize about certain situation. Then the next step is to gain favorable acceptance from the effort that is given out. So that is also really important. Self-promotion which is part of the process of management, like how the staff are self-promoting themselves. So sometimes it's not just the fact that the leader or the manager should promote them. It's like how they are part of becoming better and promoted, and what steps do they take in order to get to the next step. So one of the best ways is actually by doing stuff that are for the next level. Let's say the primary job roles require certain tasks to be done and completed. But if the employee wants to go to the next level, which requires more tasks, one of the best ways to self-promote is to start doing the requirements of the next level of the job without being required yet. So it's always good I always let my employees know, and when they want to go to the next level, I tell them the best way for you to get to the next level is by starting doing those things that you will be required in the next stage. So that is a certain way of self-promoting yourself, because the manager and the leader wants to make sure that you're able of doing certain roles in the future. So by just showing that in your performance, you will guarantee that in the future, if you are promoted, there would not be any problem. So the manager or the leader would be very comfortable in giving you whatever you need or granting you whatever promotion or advancement is needed for you. And so these are done by followers and by leaders at the same time. So these impression management is not just related to the leaders, and it's not just done by them. It's also done by the followers. So it's like a two-way relationship. Okay. Okay, intimidation. It's not always intimidation. Is not always the best or the most important part, but sometimes the managers or leaders intimidate the staff so that they'll become excited about something and take some actions. That happens only when by all those other ways or tactics you don't get what you're looking for. So you intimidate the employee or the follower in order to enhance or initiate a response that you're looking for. It's not the best practice, but sometimes it is used. So that is how it relates to context. So then followers' contribution to effective leadership. So what are the followers' contribution to effective and useful leadership? Follower identifies identities and behaviors. So sometimes the follower needs to implement decisions made by a leader, and so yes, as I was explaining, the follower behavior contributes to effective leadership. So certain behavior roles that the follower shows through the process helps the leader or the manager understand them and be able to analyze them and give them feedback. So there are certain identities and behaviors that the follower has that helps the leaders to give them the next level, which is giving them feedback and how to improve and all that. So a lot of that is due to their behavior. So need to implement decisions made by a leader and challenge misguided or unethical decisions. So like one of those behaviors is to implement what is told, what is suggested by the leader. When a leader comes up with a certain task or requirement, the followers are supposed to get them done and get away from unethical situations. Yeah, Mr. Wafa is suggesting that nowadays organizations consider any intimidation or gestures. Yeah, that is true, but by intimidation, we are not meaning the negative aspect of intimidation. By intimidation, we mean you want to initiate a response from the follower. So it's not necessarily intimidate with the negative connotation. What we mean by intimidation here is by you involve them in the process and sort of challenge them. you challenge them so that they will take the next step. It actually is used in many companies regarding sales performances and all that. So by intimidating, they want to enforce a certain response that they're looking for from the employees. So, and then willing to risk leaders' displeasure. So sometimes certain dissatisfaction from the leader can cost the employee. So sometimes despite the dissatisfaction on the side of the leader, they risk it and they take a chance, and even though they know that there might be some dissatisfaction from the leader's side, they still do what they think is right. Then take time and effort to help a leader grow and succeed. So sometimes we also need to take time with the leader. Sometimes the leader is evolving too. So it's like a relationship that is evolving between the follower and the leader. So let's say if the leader is just newly placed in their position, there's a lot to take, a lot to adjust. So sometimes we should give them some room for mistakes or problems, and they'll grow and succeed as we go along. And it also pays a lot to have the organization's mission in mind and be committed to that, strongly committed to get it done and have it done. Okay. Yeah, and yes, Mr. Navabi, the creating inputs and motivation could be great choices. Yes, they are much better than just intimidating. Okay. So right here, let's stop for a second and let's do a task. Okay, I'll give you a scenario. I want your inputs from two perspectives. One is as the leader and one is as the follower. So what do you think is right to be done in both cases? Like if you are a follower or if you are a leader. So the scenario goes like this. Let me type it down here for you. The company is going through a lot of changes due to a new department addition of a new department. So the company is going through a lot of changes due to addition to a new department. So therefore, the team members are required to do some extra steps. Okay, So there's suppose there's in your company you have a new department added to your company, and the team members now are required to certain extra steps for rather than their regular routines that they used to do. So as a leader, what would you do? And also as a follower. Okay. So let's suppose there's a new department added to the company, and team members are supposed to take some extra steps and do certain stuff in addition to what they used to do. So what is your role as a leader in this scenario, and what is your role as a follower? So first, put yourself in the shoes of a leader and try to communicate that with your staff. How would you do that? And then put yourself in the shoes of a follower and give them feedback on how you feel regarding those changes. So this is a task. Let's take a few minutes, think about it, and then I want to hear your answers, how you're going to analyze it and take actions, and like in two different roles. So if you can just go ahead, if you later when you have any answer, you can just say it out loud in the class, or you can just write it down at the chat box and we'll discuss. I want to see how you're digesting what we're discussing in the class and how you can implement it in real case scenarios. Okay, I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it. So let's discuss some of your answers to the situation. So Mr. Navabi says, as a leader, collect information about what extra work is to be done, develop action plan, divide tasks and responsibilities through terms of reference, determine time to achieve a specific task, and consider alternatives for improving or developing. Plan B. As a leader, schedule a task clearly and so responsible staff for teaching for each scheduled activities. And Mr. Muhammad Sarifa, I am a team leader. I will explain the benefits of doing the results of change to our subordinates or followers and improve in the process of changes. Then, if I'm a team leader, okay, that's great. It says as a leader, schedule tasks clearly. Okay, very good. So, yes, as you can see here, two different roles, like a leader and team member. It's really important to be able to get the job done in either scenarios. I see Mr. Rafa's hand. Please go ahead and explain to us. Yes, Mr. Rafa. We can hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koyan. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, as we discussed, high exchange relationship is very much important to effective performance. And we also discussed some of the causes of poor performance, and it was related to when subordinate offers apology because she has no prior experience on a new task. Therefore, in the case of this task, I think there is a need to assign the additional tasks because of the establishment of the new department appropriately and fairly among the followers to cover the new department's responsibilities, like educating them, coaching the followers, monitoring the performance, and providing necessary advices to rectify shortcomings and to let them become more effective as soon as possible.
Yes, that is very true.
This is on the part of the leader.
And on the part of the follower?
On the part of the follower, I think they also need to to get more educated on the new task and also discuss with the leader any problem that they may encounter during their performance.
Yes, that is very true. And also it's really important to not to forget the importance of communication, you know. As you can see, if you're dealing with a leader and a follower, basically what is the key here is the communication that happens between these two roles. So if the leader can communicate what is needs to be communicated properly, and the follower also, so it's like getting feedback according to each action that you require. So definitely it will be much more effective.
Thank you very much. I agree. Yeah, that is very true. Communication is most of the time key to any problem that we may face as a leader and as a follower.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry for missing that.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes. And it really helps to be able to, like when you're a leader, to think or put yourself in the shoes of a follower also. So end of the day, you want to make sure that if you were a follower, what would be your perceptions? So looking at the scenario in that way, you will be a more efficient leader, because what you will tell them or requirements that you put in would be uh, in regards to what they as a follower will understand. So be clear and exact and all that, but at the same time make sure that you are addressing those concerns they have regarding changes. So, because if you just tell them your requirements or what you expect from them and nothing else, it's really not going to be very helpful, because they might have certain concerns or misunderstandings about the scenario. So helping them to understand how it can be done and what are their necessities and how you address their concerns or problems. Let's say when there's a new department and they need to communicate with that new department, let's say, how are they going to be efficient in giving the new department exactly what is required? Let's say the new department is looking for certain problems. So it's really important to address their issues properly and, discuss that with them. So that is very useful. That is great. Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's go.
And if you allow me, I think, hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
I think, Mr. Puran, this is also very much related to the change management issues, which I believe we discussed in the previous sessions. And it really requires, as you said, setting up a very appropriate and effective strategy, and it requires really communication, well communication on the part of both followers and the leaders or managers.
Yes, exactly, that is true. So change management is part of what the leader should do, and also the follower. So communication actually helps for this process to be done smoothly and correctly. And then we have Mr. Khan Muhammad's comment that the most important is to highlight their priorities and delegate some authorities to managers for a period of time. This may help a leader run a very newly created department. Yes, that is also very true. Having a clear understanding of the delegations and authorities that are involved and required. So when there's a new department, probably when they want to write a new report, so they have certain authorities to use certain information or all that. So giving authorities and also prioritizing what needs to be done and delegating tasks to certain followers is also part of an efficient, change management in this scenario. Very good. Very true. Okay. So self-management. So when we discussed about self-management, we need to talk about strategies. There are certain strategies that we need to put into action so that we can manage ourselves. So some of them are behavioral strategies, like self-reward, self-punishment, self-monitoring, self-goal setting, self-rehearsals, and cue modification. So when we want to manage ourselves and we want to make sure we get certain responses and feedbacks or certain improvements in what we do, no matter if you're a leader or a follower, you need to use some certain strategies. Some of the strategies that you could use are behavioral strategies, like self-reward. Let's say you tell yourself if you are able to do certain thing, then you will reward yourself, or you will give yourself certain thing in return. So, or just look at it in a way that it's going to benefit you as a learning experience. So when let's say you finish a certain training, you will be able to understand certain things, and that's actually rewarding to you. So looking at things that way helps you to, you know, take the challenge, be more, you know, perseverant with getting the job done. And if there are challenges, you will always look at the benefit side. Then self-punishment, of course, is the other side of the coin. When you will not be able to do certain things, you will punish yourself. You will look at things in the sense that, okay, when you couldn't do it, so you're not, let's say, deserved to go to the next step. You yourself punish yourself and make sure that you will get everything done before you will go for the next step. Then self-monitoring. You need to be able to monitor what you do. You need to write down exactly what are the processes you're taking, what are the challenges, and how you're dealing with those challenges, how you're overcoming those challenges, how you will get ready for the new challenges or problems that are going to face you because of the changes that are coming along. So all these, when you monitor yourself, it's really helpful in the sense that you see exactly when you're missing. So, you know, within the process, you might be great, but just one step of the process might be like you have to communicate and through email or phone or stuff like that with the new department, and then you will find yourself not having enough time to do that, and that will mess up all the next steps. So when you monitor yourself, you'll be able to pinpoint exactly what is the step that's causing you the problem. So if you monitor yourself and see, okay, you're not that efficient in communicating to the next department, then you will be able to fix that, and then it will improve the whole, you know, situation for you and the whole performance of yours. The self-goal setting. We also need to put certain goals in our mind. Even though the company has certain goals for the employees, and the moment you enter companies, you definitely have certain goals that are assigned to you, but it's really good to have your own goals. So, like, let's say regarding a certain requirement, you set a goal that, okay, out of 100%, you want 95% accuracy regarding emails and communication with your other department. So no mistakes you want to take or you can't afford. So that's like a goal that helps you to achieve that. And then self-rehearsal, you just rehearse and try to do it again and again and learn. And then finally, cue modification. So sometimes there are certain cues or signs that you need to modify so that you can make the changes needed. And then cognitive strategies are positive self-talks and mental rehearsals. So sometimes it's about understanding or realizing the scenario. Sometimes it's about how you perceive what's going on. So having self-talks, having conversations, and be able to exactly digest what's the change that is happening around you. It's really helpful. So I see here, as a follower, talk among the team or a group what to be achieved as a matter of priority, as well as, yeah, very good. This is regarding the previous questions. Okay, and then how leaders encourage self-management. So definitely leaders will try to encourage self-management, because if your employees do self-management, it really helps you. It's as if your employees are also managing themselves. So it's like reduces what you need to do, and it really is rewarding if you, as a leader or manager, encourage or put into action some self-management, or ask your team members to have some self-management, activities. That really helps you, and it makes your job much easier. Then guidelines for followers. So what followers should do, find out what are expected to do. Okay, yeah, we discussed about it. What exactly is expected of a follower? Take the initiative to deal with the problems. Try to find the problems, deal with them. Keep the boss informed about your decision. It's really helpful to let everybody know what's going on regarding your decision, and keep them updated. Your boss, your leader should know exactly what's going on. So certain changes that might happen very fast, it's good if you put into action certain way of updating your superior position. Verify the accuracy of information you give to your boss. You are going to make sure that those information are accurate. And encourage the boss to provide honest feedback to you. And let them know, like as a follower, you need to let the boss know, okay, please give me feedback. What did I do wrong? What could I do better? What did they do right? So all that. Okay. Then the next is guidelines for followers. Continue support leaders' effort to make necessary changes. So when there is a change and the leader is required to make those changes, the support from the subordinates is really helpful. And show appreciation and provide recognition when appropriate. So it's not just that the recognition should come from your superior. As an employee, you could also give some appreciation and recognition. So it's just both ways. And then challenge flawed plans and proposals made by leaders. Sometimes you need to challenge when there are loops in what needs to be done. Let's say that the leader comes to you and says, okay, that's what we're going to do, and you see certain loops or problems, you got to raise them. You got to give them feedback. You got to say, okay, how about this side? How about that type of experience? And then resist inappropriate influence attempts by the boss. So that's the intimidation part. So don't be influenced by the boss in the wrong way. Always try to get the feedback that is going to help you, and don't ever let them get into you or intimidate you in the sense of a personal thing. So also what you want to do is providing award coaching and counseling when appropriate. So even as a follower, you would come up with coaching and feedback as we discussed. Okay, very good. So let's do another task. So in this new task, which is related to the previous one, okay, so when we put that department into action, and we responded both as a leader and a follower. So in this scenario, I want you to look at these questions and see how you could improve. Let's say, how does leader understands your job problems and needs? So how would the leader be able to improve what they do regarding that department that they put into action, so that they understand the problems and needs? We sort of covered it in the previous scenario. I just want to make sure that we address it and sort of focus on it and highlight it. How does your leader recognize your potential? So these questions, like 1, 2, 3, 4, as you can see, it's all about the relationship and the communication and all that between the leader and the follower. So tell me, how could you improve them? Like, how could you improve your understanding of the problems and needs of your employee? How do you recognize their potential? And how would you characterize your relationship? So what type of relationship are you creating with your employee when you're a leader, in that case that we have a new department added to the company? And what are the chances that the leader would use his or her power to help you solve the problem? So how would we be able to improve the actions we discussed regarding the leader side by looking at these questions? So I want like some practical answers to these questions, to this task also. So take a couple of minutes again and write it down in the chat box, or you can just tell to the class what do you think about it. So basically the task is just to tell me how you could use these questions and improve your leader role in the previous scenario. Okay, I'll give you a couple minutes and you can be starting thinking about it and working on it. Okay, so the answer I have from okay, how would you characterize your relationship with your leader? I would say the average because it's extremely close relationship with the leader. Okay. For communication, coaching, and mentoring, driving clarity for communication, service, understanding the problems, providing support to the staff, improving their knowledge and skills. Positive feedback. Okay, yes, very good. So the relationship with like as a leader, so you want the deeper level relationship. So I'm not sure as an employee, but the question was how as a leader you will take care of that. So so Mr. Khan Mohammed, it might be a good idea to, as a leader, to have as much relationship, like close relationship with your employee as well as possible. Like, by close relationship, we don't mean that you just become friends and best friends. What we mean by close relationship is just getting feedback from them all the time and monitoring them, and be in a on a basis, on like a regular basis, you get together and you discuss the issues and problems. So that's for sure a plus. And then for Mr. Navabi, communication and coaching, recognition and all that. So yes, by communication, you will find out the problems for the potential. You just mentor them and acknowledge their accomplishments. So that helps your relationship also, and improving your knowledge. And then positive feedback. Yes. Also, what Mr. Bafa says, that understanding problems related to your subordinate sound communication, recognizing their potential to add positive feedback. Yes, as you can see, the questions are actually very helpful, and it's really helpful to better your relationship with your employee, recognize their potential, and they solve the problems in the work. So helping them to solve the problem, helping them to solve the problem at the work is really helpful. So as you can see, it's really beneficial to understand what employees expect from the leader and what leaders expect from the employees. So as a leader or a manager, it's really helpful to be able to consider and look at things in the eyes of the employee, so that you would know what are the possible response to what you do and what are the next actions that you can take. So if there is no questions here, we can finish the class right here and start the next class, which is our business economics class. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, we have a comment from Mr. Nazari. Leaders should understand. Yes, exactly. Good leaders should understand the problems of the staff and be able to communicate with them. A supervisor should have leadership charisma, that's correct. Can a leader have another leader? Yes, absolutely. We always have leaders, and each leader has another leader. It's food for thought. Yes, absolutely. In a perfect scenario, actually, every single person in the company would role play as a leader, as we discussed that in the first session. So every single person is monitoring and coaching the other person, even though your position might be higher, but it doesn't mean that the other employees of the company cannot be your leader at the same time of being your employee. So it's really important to change roles. But that is a great question, Mr. Elias. Okay, very good. Any other question? Any other comments? Okay, so it seems that there's no questions. So let's finish the class right here, and we'll come back for the business economics in half hour for the next class. Yes, very true, very true. We all are leaders, and when you take that approach, we will be much more successful, and it's much more rewarding. Because you take the ownership and you really care and you take action accordingly. So that is really important. Okay, so that is great. So I'll see you in about half hour in our business economics class. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.